Hi everyone, welcome to OrderEase office hours today. Today's session is all about shipments, and Kyle here will be walking us through it. Drop your questions in the chat if you have any, and Kyle, it's over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Nora, as always. So welcome everybody to Office Hours session number 5. My name is Kyle Minarski. If you see me before, we've been doing quite a few different walkthroughs through the different office hour sessions, from the dashboard to order management, purchase order management, product management, price list management, all the cool things that come along with your OrderEase account. But if this is your first session, I'm in the Senior Business Development Manager here at OrderEase. Been with the company for just over, I'd say, kind of up on 11 years now this October. So it's been an exciting journey for me. But in today's session, we're focusing on managing your shipments. So whether it being a completely automated experience or whether it being something that's a little bit more self-managed, which is, I wouldn't say the most common occurrence here at OrderEase because we're an integrations and automations first company. But my hope with today's session is you're going to get a first-hand insight into our shipments module, what it actually means, and all the cool things and efficiencies that surround it when we're integrating with different systems as well. So without any further ado, what we're going to do is we will dive right in. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So to many, probably seeing some familiar pieces that we looked at before, like I said, from the dashboard to customer management, product management, sales orders, and the ordering experience. But today is a really cool segue into shipments. So in my last 11 years here, experience at OrderEase and working with suppliers all across multiple industries, from pet supply to lawn and garden to lumber and building materials, automotive and to fashion, decor, housewares, everything in between. There is, every business has their own nuances, their own flavor of how they're typically doing things. But the problems that all these businesses and industries are facing usually have a common thread between them. It's just a lot of manual work, a lot of copying and pasting, a lot of keystrokes and various systems, whether they're your own systems, maybe they're the EDI training partner system, because you got to get the lovely ASN and advanced ship notices out to them. So historically been a very manual and tedious process, being prone to error. So with today's session, we'll really be focusing on the shipments aspect and just really driving those efficiencies. So where we're going to begin is we're going to dive right into the shipments tab. So just some context. We're, as I said, an integrations first company. So integrating with, let's say, your ERP system, your backend systems. But for today's session, your shipping, logistics, fulfillment, pick and pack systems. Now, this could be systems that you've picked. Could be as simple as a ShipStation, which is super common across the board, to maybe some more intricate and robust systems like Extensive or Lagiwa or Vericore, various systems that maybe your 3PLs are using that typically you're emailing correspondence back and forth just to get the shipment updates and details. You think of this related to like an EDI environment, like I kind of alluded to before, where it's a tremendous amount of work, especially if you're doing drop shipping orders or just have quite a few orders coming in from your trading partners where you're jumping in through multiple portals, a lot of copy and pasting. If you don't have a shipping system, you're making phone calls to various carriers, logging into different portals and websites through UPS or World Ship or whatever it might be. So really it's about bringing all of that together in a more unified fashion, starting to standardize that entire process as well, but also being a mere reflection and pulling the data, let's say, from the ShipStations, the Extensives, the Freight Views, or better yet, even the Pack Genies of the world, which is just an unbelievably cool company that does the shipping, fulfillment, pick and pack automations that we do a ton of projects with. Love the folks down there. But they've got some really cool stuff going on as well, just to drive the efficiencies on the warehouse side and the communications for shipments. So what you'll see here is your dedicated shipments tab. So in the perfect world, we're integrated, let's say, with ShipStation in this one example, but you can start thinking that could be, UPS World Ship or those other types of shipping systems, and it could even be multiples. Maybe you operate multiple 3PLs. Some operate on various systems as well. Doesn't have to be an all or nothing sort of scenario. We can build some rules, use our AI rules engine, and base the order routing on those rules to where those need to go. Maybe, of course, they're all going to your ERP, But maybe there's some rules that delegate, well, this customer region pulls from our California warehouse, and this one pulls from the one in Toronto, all on respectively different systems. So it's about sort of becoming this hub with just different spokes that come out and building the rules, like I said, around it, just to move the orders and the data in the right way, of course, bringing it back in a unified format. And if we need to, reconciling and sort of updating those orders within your source of truth, your ERP, whether it be a NetSuite or a Spire or a BlueLink or an Acumatica. Could be something as simple as a QuickBooks Online, or even something a bit more of a robust Intuit product like a QuickBooks Enterprise or Wholesalers and Manufacturers Edition. About bringing all the data around with as minimal effort to no effort as possible. So as we look at the shipment screen here, we've of course got them all organized. It does default some of the filters over here, but you can certainly go in and just pick certain date ranges. You can update and say, I only want to look at the shipment statuses of it's, packed and ready, or it's in transit. So a lot of those statuses are also tying into these other shipment systems. And we've even got some cool precursors for a lot of these in-between steps as well that sort of are accommodating those in-between statuses for various, third-party shipping systems and whatnot as well. But filtering shipments just by a certain customer. Hey, I only want to look at my Lowe's orders, be able just to find all your Lowe's shipments, or I just want to look at the ones going out through, FedEx ground, and you could type that in through the carrier, finding specific, shipments based on a tracking number, or even just shipment and scheduled delivery dates where you want to, build out maybe your shipments that are expected to be delivered next week or, next month or whatever that might be, just so that we can take all the shipment data and really boil it down to the ones that you're really looking for in a fraction of a second. Very simple and easy to use. All you folks here are watching the webinar and recording. I know how busy you are. All this extra work would be counterintuitive. So we really want to drive these efficiencies home for you. But what we'll also see as we're looking at sort of our all shipments here with some of our more recent ones at the top, we can see a shipment even, for a couple that are actually going out today. But as we see here, we've got certain orders that have come in through various channels. Could be EDI, could be through our portal, could be PDF orders that are emailed in that we're then digitizing, which has been a really cool, I'd say one of our most popular services here as well, EDI and PDFs. But we know that we got an order. We know that this is a Lowe's related order and shipment with a specific buyer PO number. It can see that this shipment was created by an integration. So instead of some user coming in, and historically this is how it was done, where you're manually keystroking in all the different information. You imagine keying in all their copying and pasting tracking numbers and all the scat codes and everything. It just leaves so much room for error. So this is basically saying this shipment has been pulled in from a separate integration that OrderEase facilitates, like I said, through some of the providers I've mentioned. We have a link to the order as well. So again, this shipment is tied to this particular order. So if you want to view the order, it's as simple as a click. It takes you to the OrderEase tab that we looked at one of the prior office hours session, where you get the nice robust breakdown, integration statuses, prices, quantities, everything that's there for you. So it's linked to the original order. We can see here that the carrier and the tracking, we know it's going out through FedEx ground. We've got a dedicated tracking number as well associated, and even some integration statuses, which might be a little reminiscent to what you've seen in one of our prior sessions when we looked at orders, where you've got even some assurances on the integration status. So I can see that, hey, this order has been moving into our QuickBooks. It's moving through our ShipStation processes successfully. And you know what? Because it's an EDI order, we've been communicating with Lowe's US Dropship successfully as well. So if you're seeing all the green on the statuses and whatnot over here, your system's all singing the same hymns. Everything's working as is expected. Typically, red, like I've mentioned before, doesn't always mean that there's a problem, but maybe does require some attention. But maybe for something like an integration status in red, unsuccessful, you're running an on-premise ERP solution installed on your server, servers go down. It's, again, whatever the variables might be, maybe it says it was unsuccessful. You can click on it, review maybe why, retry it, and it'll do its best to continue through the workflow. We do some auto retries as well. So sometimes we catch those discrepancies before it even becomes, you're even aware that, hey, servers went down and there could have been a delay in pulling some of the information back. We do some auto retries. Maybe the server comes back. We're starting to retrying to send the data through, and it's they're we've corrected it before you even realized there was a problem. So we're really sort of sitting on your side of the table and have your interests in mind just to keep things moving. Things like the shipment date, you'll be able to see when it's been shipped, and then just some statuses. I know we've got pending across the board, but again, it's being pulled from shipment systems. A lot of these in-between statuses are going through a bit of an update. Doesn't mean things aren't working. It just means that we're accommodating more and more and more with more granular shipping systems or processes or statuses as well. So no need to worry about the pending. It just means that everything's still going, still as you see, as it's moving through the integration statuses. We've of course got some major ones at the top. You can of course do bulk actions, so you can even select certain shipments or all shipments, or again, if you're filtering just to pick some certain customers, and you can action on them to move them through a status or mark them as completed. Not necessarily going to be relative if it's fully automated, but like I alluded to, I do have a handful of clients that are I got one very specific example. Hey, we just signed our first deal with Home Depot. We're doing a drop ship, so we're going to be part of their online business. Maybe not necessarily in store yet, but we don't know what this is going to look like for us. We don't have a dedicated commitment on 50 POs a month. We only have 2 SKUs that we're offering through there because maybe it's the one I'm thinking of is a very specialty home renovation product, more so in the HVAC side with your vents and whatnot. Kind of a cool vent product. So you're still able to self-manage your shipments area. And we'll have a quick look at that, very high level. Everyone's got a little bit of their own flavor to it. But if you don't have a dedicated shipment system in place, you're doing business where you still feel like you want to communicate shipments to your customers, have points of record for your customers and maybe your sales team that manage them. Or like I alluded to, you got a Home Depot project for their drop shipping program. Don't have the ShipStation or all these robust things, or maybe you're like, I don't know if I want to invest, it's nominal, but you still invest in maybe these extra pieces of our order management system until volume picks up. You can still self-manage all your shipments. Would be the same song and dance maybe prior, some data entry, some copy and pasting. But if you're required to, let's say, issue an advanced ship notice, like so many trading partners in EDI require, there's no barrier for you at least to come in and start managing those shipments for them until maybe you reach that crossroads. We're either going to have to throw a body at this, hire somebody in to manage our EDI business or our workflows internally, or do we invest a nominal fee, one-time fee into maybe building in these bridges for shipping integrations, and then maybe you're saving tens of thousands of dollars on a salary and you're going to put that into something growth oriented, something I've alluded to before, especially in some of the other prior sessions. I want to see companies invest in the more growth oriented than just keeping the ship afloat with someone that's just shoveling water out of the ship to keep it moving, if you kind of know what I'm getting at. But apart from that, if I were to go in and let's say just click on the 3 dots, again, we can edit shipments, we can delete them, we can mark them into different statuses. Again, if you're doing a bit more of a manual self-managed side, those typically line up with the shipping systems we're integrated with. And we also facilitate the shipping labels. So you can generate the shipping labels to the specifics of your trading partners within OrderEase. My personal recommendation, you're doing it through your shipping system. It's probably part of the normal day-to-day that your warehousing or pick and pack teams are doing, and especially if you've already implemented, let's say, a 3PL or a WMS system, shipment systems, freight and logistics systems internally. We'd like to see those warehouse staff living in their world. I don't want to throw a whole bunch of new processes, do this here, do this one thing here. But as a fail-safe, again, maybe in self-managed, you can still get your packing slips and your shipping labels printed to your trading partners specifics through OrderEase as well. And our onboarding team will work with you on those nuances and minor differences, because I know they're very similar in so many ways, but there's always those minute little differences between them. So we'll make sure those are accommodated for you. If I were to go in and let's say review a recent shipment, it's going to be, again, a mere reflection of the data being pulled in from the shipping system. So on the left-hand side, good rule of thumb, required fields typically for any or most, if not all, shipments. So things like the shipment name, the carrier, and SCAT code, typically a 2 to 4 digit identifier for the particular carrier. We've got the reference and tracking. We've got the shipment date. And then on the right-hand side, we've got some of the optional fields. A lot of them are tied to, let's say, some industries in automotive or some more niche aspects. So we've accommodated that for a particular client. But for the most part, like you see with this standard EDI drop shipping or order, it's all the required fields as well. But of course, the bill of lading, the scheduled delivery, particular warehouse, the RPA numbers, everything there. Of course, we've got sort of the order, we know the purchaser, we know the alternate address or the address of where it's going. And of course, we've got the actual shipment and order below here in terms of it's a single package. We've got one thing in it, and all the weights and dimensions, excuse me, and quantities are simply just being pulled back from ShipStation in this example. So there was no manual intervention. This is all pre-populated. And some of you might be thinking, well, hey, Kyle, like, some of our trading partners, again, EDI, it's such a pain point for so many businesses, and it's, old technology. It's not great, but it works. Is that maybe there's specific nuances in terms of the data that's being translated? Well, we facilitate that as sort of this buffer in the middle. So even if there's some different requirements or layouts or formats or data or pieces between a Lowe's or a Home Depot or a Napa Auto Parts or a Sobeys or whatever it might be, once the data hits OrderEase in a unified format, when we have to transmit it, it translates to that particular structure for that particular trading partner as well. And you didn't have to do anything additional, because that's the whole core, is you're trying to standardize and translate where you have more of a single process versus now you're accommodating multiple processes. So shipments usually drives a good amount of efficiencies, not just even on us doing the order intake to the ERP, and everything's accurate and validated before it even gets there. It's everything after that order hits the ERP, where usually there's still a nice road ahead of clients and customers and partners of mine, where there's still a lot of manual work to be done. But as you see here on the screen, it's all just data that's being synced from those systems and then translated and delivered outwards. Like you see as well, some integration statuses. You get hit with sort of some tiles or areas where there's integration statuses, but just like you saw on the shipment screen, successful, everything's transmitted, everything's moving through as it should. So everything is working, which is great. And again, some actions at the top here where you can go in and again, just like you saw on the prior screen, can move it through different stages and statuses. But in the perfect world, again, you're using something like a Pack Genie. Just again, I can't speak highly enough of those folks down there with what they got going on and everything they have planned. You won't have to come here and touch that. Everything's done. And I'm sure with a system like a Pack Genie or supplementary, you're moving X number of packages out a day. I'm sure we could look to even, increase that substantially with minimal effort. So less time, but you're getting more out the door. And that's sort of the value between an OrderEase and, let's say, hypothetically, a Pack Genie or a respective system like theirs, in collaboration, working side by side. Apart from that, if we did need to go in and, let's say, create a shipment on the fly, same screen, gives you the required fields, gives you the optional fields. And this is where, again, you would come in, fill in the information. You can link it to one of the intake orders that we've taken from either a PDF that was emailed in, a portal order, distributor's order. Could be a drop ship order, could be a retail order that maybe we're facilitating, unless Shopify, they've already picked their carrier and everything, and we're just going to reflect it. So you got all these options, and if you decide to book discovery call either with myself personally or one of the members on my team, these are the types of things we're going to be addressing, asking some questions about, and really starting to tie the gaps for you folks on how do we really drive efficiencies, again, not just on intake, but through the life cycle of that entire order. Because I want to give some value not just to your sales team, I want to give it to your customer, I want to give it to your finance department, your warehouse and shipping department, fulfillment department. I want leadership to have oversight to see that everything is moving seamlessly, and start putting some metrics behind it as well. Moving certain X packages out today versus a package now we're moving 3X out the door in a week. We can really start putting some metrics behind that and start gauging the hours and the error rates and everything, which I am very confident is just you're going to see this great drop in all those problems and just an increase in productivity as well. But outside of that, like I alluded to, it's just a great way you can come in, still manage your shipments. And like I said, we have a handful of clients that are self-managing, but the vast majority are saying, I don't want this to be hands-off. I want my warehouse team to keep doing what they're doing, but I want to make sure that there's none of those extra in-between steps and room for error. Or like I've seen, hey, we're printing stuff off and walking it down to the warehouse and handing it over, and it's all this back and forth. Even a quick anecdote as well. I'm a story kind of guy. I was speaking with a potential new client the other day, and the really funny part was that the orders were coming in, the invoices were not reflective of the original order, of what was actually getting into their ERP on the sales order, but shipments were still going out accurately. So like even though Like, there was just this massive discrepancy, and then finance had to step back in and start trying to figure out why are orders coming in not right, but they're moving out the door as they should in shipments. There was this huge disconnect in terms of how things were going. And what I found out was that the warehouse team was actually going off of the original PO that they were CC'd on when it came in. But what happens if that order changes at the order desk? What if the customer calls in and last minute and says, "Hey, we want to pull this item, we want to add this, we want to change our freight methodologies, use our carrier accounts," all these different things. And finance was spending so much time of their day just trying to figure out what was disconnected. So they reached out to me, and I started putting a plan in place for them to say, here's how we're going to correct all that from the intake of the order all the way to you guys getting paid. So they were pretty appreciative that we kind of walked through it. But as I digress, like some of you may have learned I do in these sessions, just a great way that you can do it. Now, some of the last couple things, because it is a bit of a shorter and sweeter session today, is of course we do, as I call it, the little hamburger menu at the bottom left here. Not as many options like we saw maybe in products, where you had maybe like 12 different options in terms of managing price lists and imports and product descriptors and cross-referencing SKUs to ASIN numbers for Amazon and vendor codes and everything. It's pretty simplistic. We have things like managing your packaging rules. Now, through some different rules engines that we have internally, it's just where you can set up different rules based on your products, your package types, to say, what's the best methodologies for doing the pick and pack. Now, I'll be completely frank and I'll be honest. No, we are not a dedicated shipping and logistics systems, and I cannot talk highly enough about great companies out there like PackGenie, where that's their core business. They've built algorithms, they're using AI, they've got reports and dashboards, they're managing efficiency on actual metrics, where they can actually build your rules, where they know like what your product weights are, they know your dimensions, they know the boxes, and when an order comes in, they're literally telling you to say, here is the most efficient way to go to your warehouse, or if you're, let's say, in the nursery space, which I do a lot of business with live horticultural products with them, to go to your perennial side of your business out there in the field. Here's all your orders for the day. Here's orders for customers. Here's the orders that need to go out by end of day or tomorrow. And that you can do a master pick list. You can do a customer by customer pick list. And it'll actually tell you when you get back to your packing station, here is the most optimal way to take this order, box it, single box, double box, what type of boxes, should we break it out? And they're just basically flying through scanning and packing things into boxes. So most of those packaging rules we leverage from those dedicated systems, but there is ways to build some inside of OrderEase if they're a little bit more simplistic. As you get more complex, you've maybe got thousands of products, you've got hundreds of boxes, whatever sizes and types and everything. That's where I would really recommend you look at a system like the PackGenies or the supplementary systems that's what they do, and we can then move that data around as well. You can import your rules, you can create them on the fly, so pretty easy to do from there. Outside of that, we've got your packaging types. Again, things that you've probably seen in ShipStation, the PackGenies, and the other types of systems out there, where you can actually load in all your different box types. And like you see here, we've got tons of different permutations. A lot of the data gets pulled in maybe from those permutations from the dedicated shipping systems. But like I alluded to, in a lot of instances, we are just that mere reflection of the data. So again, I like to keep you in the shipping systems that you've picked, that made sense for your business. And I'm just making sure that when the warehouse and pick and pack team are doing their job, the data's flowing up. It's consolidating and reconciling things on your invoicing side, especially if there's freight charges or carriers and tracking that needs to get included on the invoice. But more importantly as well, other than you getting paid, super important, delivering that out to the requirements of your customers also. So more so a mere reflection of data. You're maintaining it in your other shipping system, and we're just that connective tissue to make sure that we're, recognizing those different variables and accommodating them as well. As we see here, one of the last pieces is, of course, you could import your shipments. You don't have to go in one by one. So if you wanted to come in and say, hey, Kyle, you know what? We've got them all in an Excel format. I've got 50 shipments that I'm ready to populate and get out the door, or start communicating with EDI trading partners or otherwise, you can certainly come in. We have imports across the board. It's not like an integration or nothing, or a manual or nothing. We do offer imports across almost all the different functionalities of OrderEase to kind of either bring something in, update something, or create something as well. So from the basic shipment information, you're able to come in here, import them. We can even provide you a sample file. So you can see even, hey, here's the typical headings already populated. Here's some sample data of what it should look like as we're bringing it into that file. And then you can easily import it and then maybe potentially bulk action on those new shipments to say, mark them as shipped, to then initiate the communication through EDI, let's say, as an example. Of course, we've got more advanced shipments, so similar thing, but as you see here, we've got a lot more details in terms of weights and dimensions and lot numbers and serial numbers and a lot more going on. So again, if there is more rigid requirements or you need to have more data on those shipment imports, you can totally do it. And like you see here, import your packaging rules, like I showed you before for the auto packing, and a bit of the automation side, and even some logs so you can see sort of imports happening, shipments being updated, just for some assurances. It's like logs across other aspects of OrderEase for integrations or correspondences. Is things working? When is it happening? What did it do? You'll have some timestamps on things that are actually going on inside of the system. Just alluding to shipments as well, if I wanted to give you maybe just some insight in terms of some current integrations. If I did go to integrations here, again, I highly recommend you guys, if your folks, come to our website. It's a living, breathing page. Even inside OrderEase, it's living and breathing. So there's always new integrations. There's always new training partners, always new opportunities for you to do further consolidations on your order types. And we're building new integrations based on client needs. About a year ago, we didn't have Vericore. We had 2 clients approach us and we built it. So, this is constantly growing, constantly evolving. Obviously, I'm not going to go into every, individual one, but as you see here, it is just an extensive list of integrations available to you, depending on what your internal tech stack might be. And as I allude to it, things like, your fulfillment side, just a quick snapshot. This is not all of them. The ones we've been able to publish, there's still others behind the scenes coming to the front end, others we're working on. But you can see here, we've got a nice, assortment of different shipping integrations. And I believe, UPS and UPS World Ship are on the horizon as well. But like I said, Pack Genie, just again, because today's the topic of shipments, I just can't speak highly enough of the folks down there. And they actually run their own business using their own technology. That's how this started. They had their own drop shipping business, needed to create a solution to accommodate high volume of 1Z, 2Z low value orders to make it worth their while. They developed it, worked so well. Now they're offering it to the market. So if you're in the market, I'm not saying that I have preferential treatment across the board, but I've just gotten to know these folks so well just because they're such a cool company. If you're in need of something, I would highly recommend maybe checking those folks out. But like I alluded to, bit of a shorter and a bit of a sweeter session today. The whole core concept is the mirror of the data. If I'm leaving you with some parting words, we want to drive the efficiencies. We want to pull the data in from the systems that you've selected that make sense for your business. I'm always happy to give some recommendations on what I think has been working well, either on an industry specific basis or in general, that I think would accommodate multiple industries and product types. But if there are any questions at all, you can certainly drop them into the chat, any comments. And of course, after the session, we will be sending this out for later viewing. It'll be probably accessible on the website. And I'm just pleased to be able to sit in front of you folks again today and look forward to our next session of office hours as well.
Thank you, Kyle. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. The recording will be in your inbox soon. And that's all. See you at the next time. Goodbye.